Good morning and welcome back to another TCP Newsbreak. This is your girl, Lady L, and I am here in studio with two protesters of not necessarily of a different kind, but definitely with a different message. Let's welcome our in-studio guests, Miss Polisa Newland and Miss Aaliyah J. How are you?
Oh, good.
Welcome, welcome. So, ladies, you guys are organizing a protest at LBC, also known as Lancaster Bible College, correct?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. How did that come about? Like, I mean, I think that we haven't really seen too many protests happening on college campuses. So can you guys tell us why you guys chose LBC and what do you hope to really inspire our community about?
Yeah,
well, I can go first. I'm currently a student at Lancaster Bible College. I moved here in 2017 to attend their musical theater program. I was there for 2 years full-time on campus, and I moved off campus and switched programs. I dealt with a good amount of racism within that department and within that program, and also just within the general campus climate on the Lancaster campus at LBC. I wrote a lot of emails. I came forward to my professors about it, and just I noticed a lot of erasure. Lancaster Bible College is interesting because they have two other locations. They have one in Philly and one in Washington, D.C. that are very diverse, very, it seems like there's an equitable distribution of power and representation and cultural awareness that just is lacking at the mother campus, so to speak, in Lancaster. And there was just a lot that I noticed my first few years there that disturbed me. One of those things was the lack of cultural events for Black History Month. That was something I noticed. I noticed that a lot of the preachers and teachers that we had come in were mostly white males, and there were quite a few of them that were teaching ideologies that tended to view minorities and view Black and brown people as sort of less than.
Wow.
That was concerning to me. I saw a lot of sexism as well on that campus, but that's that's a whole other ballgame there. There were a lot of microaggressions from students, a lot of students who were touching my hair or like saying I'd never met a Black person before, like, you know, assuming that I got in here on a scholarship because why else would I be here, or asking me what country I'm from, and just a lot of things like that, a lot of microaggressions like that, or comments like, oh, you're so smart for a Black girl, or you're so pretty for a Black girl, or like, I didn't know Black people could be kind, intelligent, thoughtful, all that stuff, you know what I mean? So there was a lot of assumptions under that.
Well, so my question is, it being a institution of higher learning based in Christianity, I would think that it would be a lot more welcoming, especially with diversity. I think about a lot of like the Baptist churches and the Pentecostal church, and I think about just Black Catholics, and I'm like floored at all of these tales. So why do you think that there's so much something that could be seen as racism going on in an institution where it's supposed to be rooted in Christian values?
I think it all goes back to like there's like this separation with white evangelical Christianity and like the Baptist diaspora for like Black and the UAME church, which was made for which is all rooted in Black Christianity. So I think for LBC's case, it's a lot of the white supremacist ideology, like
within their curriculum.
So it takes you aback being like, okay, they're Christian, so why is there's so much racism and sexism drenched in this institution? But it's a tale as old as time when you dig deep into the history of Christianity and the history of what white evangelical church looks like, and going from there, like Jamar Tisby lays it out plain in The Color of Compromise in his book. He goes from the beginning of slavery to now, of how the church has weaved racism within within its systems and how they view scripture to spiritually bypass that. So you want to say, oh, I'm shocked, but at the same time, if you look and you dig back into history, you're like, I'm not. Because for me, like, my story is a little bit different than Police's. I went to ministry school before I went to LBC, and they kind of came to my campus and they were like, we want you, and they gave me a full scholarship for their worship arts as a singer to be in their department. And I already experienced racism at a Christian institution, so when I experienced it at LBC, it was kind of like, okay, I know what you're doing, but you know, I like to tell people that PA stands for passive aggressive. So they have a way of saying it and really dressing up microaggressive terms and dressing up spiritual, and covering up, you know, spiritual bypassing to make you feel like, oh, I'm crazy. And I, because I'm so used to seeing racism and being like, okay, that's racist, it was easy for me to be like, I'm done, I'm gone, this isn't for me. So I think you want to say, but they're Christians, like, how can this be? But when you really sit back, you learn the history of where Christianity came from, well, the American version of Christianity, not the real biblical, the heart of Christ Christianity, you can see that they're not too far-fetched from anything.
That difference between Christian nationalism and following the way of Jesus, the brown man that was killed by the state in the early first century. So with LBC, I think it's private Christian colleges. I think they're in an interesting place in the sense that they get to separate themselves from society. Lancaster Bible College is also interesting because they don't have Title IX. That's something they opted out of so that they wouldn't have to accommodate LGBTQIA students. I think there's a long history of religious institutions avoiding things like critical race theory, things like anti-racism policies, efforts to uplift women through feminist classes, efforts to center Black people in academia. We don't have a lot of full-time Black professors at our school. And really, this campaign that we started really a few weeks ago has been born out of my experience. I wrote a letter a year ago to the faculty and staff of my school detailing the different phrases that students would use to me, people who felt free enough to say, oh, you're my nigga, oh, you're my nigga, oh, wait, I can't say that anymore, can I? Because police is in the building. Or just throwing that around, or like professors who would say, well, this is a white school, and if you have a problem with discrimination,
you need to go to HBCU,
or you can leave, but judging by the scholarship we had to give you, it's not like you could afford to go anywhere else.
And taking assumptions, making assumptions like that one specific teacher saying, because these are things that police and I both heard because we shared a department. We had two different focuses, but we got to share a department, and so we had the same professors and head of everything. And so him telling both of us, like, based off of your scholarship, you don't deserve to be here. Well, okay, cool. Let me give you my resume. This is my 4th degree. I don't need to be here. You asked me to be here. So these generalizations of people being like, oh, you're from the inner city? Tell me about CPS. What is it like being in CPS? Like, and, oh, your hair, can I smell your cocoa oil? Can you put some in my hair? Can you braid my hair? These are the things that Black and BIPOC students at LBC experience every day.
Wow.
And it's not taken seriously. Like, there's students that come forward and try to have their concerns addressed. You know, they say like, hey, like, I had people like saying racial slurs to me or making assumptions about me, or I had a teacher tell me that I'm dressed well enough to stand in court. And, you know, back in the day, you people, we knew how to deal with you people back then. Like, we would lynch you and beat you and hang you from trees, and like just the wildest stuff that they say in these classes. And it's like, when you come forward, you're dismissed, or you're told that you need to show grace and forgiveness, and that's where the Christian element comes in a weaponized way against people who want to speak about racism. There have been a couple social media sites this summer that have been highlighting students at LBC's stories who are Black and brown and indigenous people of color. One of them is Black at LBC. Their page is recently shut down, but they're a great place to look and see what's been happening. Another one that recently started is BIPOC at LBC and LGBTQIA students. There's racism that's happening at that school, but there's also other issues like homophobia, sexism, misogyny. But we really just wanted to highlight the stories of alumni that haven't been told. Like, we've gotten stories from alumni who have said, thank you for speaking up about this. Like, the school has never acknowledged the harm that they've done. Like, there's Black and brown students we know who have gone to school before either of us that are just like, no one would listen to me when I came forward and mentioned that, white students were speaking in AAVE to me and saying things like watermelon and fried chicken, or like shouting that. And it's the stories that you can read on these websites are just heartbreaking.
Are there any concerns about terrorist type groups operating within the school? Are you guys concerned at all about that, or any kind of extremist behavior or language?
I think if anything, it's the students, but also it's their president, Dr. Tommy Kiedis. He is the most neglectful human being I've ever met. And I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm not going to be polite with it. He takes thoughts of brown and Black people who give them advice and he shoves them to the side, especially if they're women. All throughout what he is doing at LBC right now is because Polisa has given him on a silver platter, this is what you should do, but then he dresses it down for white comfort. I think the students will give us more backlash than any other type of group, which we have seen when we started the LBC campaign. I don't know how far police went. For me, I was getting hate after hate after hate after hate. Just saying, and then Black at LBC had one guy say, the KKK would love if we had a Black fraternity on campus. So like, these are students that go to their school who are comfortable doing blackface, who are comfortable
racial slurs.
saying,
We've had a couple incidences of blackface.
Yeah.
So are there any, so what kind of student groups are there for Black students and students of color? We see other public institutions have like the Black Student Union, Latino Student Organization, stuff like that. Are there any organizations that offer those types of supports for Black and other students of color on campus? And how do those operate with everything else that goes on?
So about a year ago, I worked with a couple other Black students and we put together a proposal for a minority student union. Originally, it was supposed to be a Black student union with under the umbrella of a multicultural student organization, or just a huge office of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because the idea is usually these smaller groups are under an umbrella of like a large multicultural organization, right? Like, unfortunately, the school has for a long time refused to create safe space groups for Black and brown students. It's only been within this past few months that they have acquiesced to having a minority student union, which I'm glad for. My concern with the MSA, for the first concern I have is that the idea of having a minority student union received a lot of deflection, a lot of pushback from the administration. It's only during this George Floyd summer that they've decided to actually back an organization like this. But the language that they are choosing to use for it doesn't, my fear is that it's not accurately going to address the needs of Black and brown students on campus, because the only way an organization built for the advocacy of Black and brown students on LBC seems to be able to operate is if they operate within the confines of white comfort.
Yeah.
So whatever they are going to be allowed to say, and this is something I really hope doesn't happen, but from what I've been seeing from their administration, the only efforts that I feel like would be allowed to be validated are efforts that don't make white students uncomfortable. And so I am glad that there is a minority student union now. They haven't put out any events or any plans. They've just been introducing their leadership team. They're very new. Like I said, the past few months it just started. I do support them. It's just that my fear is that because there are students who are running this and because the administration itself isn't willing to acknowledge that there is a pattern of systemic racism on campus, I don't know how far their concerns are going to be validated and heard.
Yeah, almost like a pandering. Like, oh yeah, we're going to let you
have
have
this MSA, but
Yeah.
are we actually going to call it a safe space? And that was an issue that I was having a year ago when I was drafting this proposal. One of the teachers that was looking over it was like, we can't call it a safe space because that would make white students feel uncomfortable. We don't want to make it seem like Black students are segregating or minority students are segregating. We have to make this seem like, we have to make this sound appealing to all students. And while I understand that, like the purpose of a union for minority students, specifically for Black and brown students, is to make a safe space for them where they don't feel the need to assimilate to white cultural norms of speaking and operating. And my concern with this union that just started is if the school is only willing to put out diversity efforts and diversity statements that don't acknowledge racism, that don't have racial incident bias reporting forms available easily on the website, which is one of the demands we have in our petition, if they don't have an officer of equity, inclusion, and diversity there full-time to act as a liaison between the students and the administration, I worry that this might become a performative thing. And there's been at least one student that has reached out to us and said, I came to the MSA with a concern and they dismissed it and told me that I was engaging in reverse racism. So it's just,
Oh, wow. Okay, so we can see what's on the horizon for that group.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about your protest? It's on tomorrow.
Yes, it's tomorrow.
What time? Where can everybody meet you guys at?
Okay, so it's tomorrow at 10 a.m. You can meet us at the front gates of Lancaster Bible College. We will not be going into the campus because we want to respect COVID procedures, and we want to make sure that we're not bringing a ton of strangers into, the group of students. We're trying to keep everybody healthy, but we also feel it's important to have a demonstration. And just to bring closure, a lot of alumni are coming who feel that their concerns and the things that they wanted to see are represented in our petition and in the 6 demands that we've made of the administration. So they will be there, and we're hoping that it will be a time of recognition. I feel that a lot of students on that campus, majority white students, don't realize what a lot of their friends have gone through or are still going through. Because although the school talks about wanting diversity and now they care about it, they have yet to acknowledge the negligence and the harm that was done and is still being done to Black and brown students. And I don't know their full intentions, but in this case, I feel the impact is better than intention and more important than intention. So this protest is just a chance for us to get the college to take notice. The president is being emailed our petition daily. Change.org sends updates on our petition to the presidential office email. He has not responded to the campaign members reaching out for a meeting. And so we are moving through Dr. King's model of 4 steps for a nonviolent campaign. The first is ascertaining whether there's injustice. According to a lot of the stories that have been coming out and our own experiences, as well as alumni that have talked to us, there is indeed documentation of injustice over the years at the school. The second step is negotiation, which multiple students have tried, myself included. The third step is self-purification. We've taken time to think and pray and meditate on what we should be doing. We've gathered testimony after testimony coming in, and now is direct action. So this protest is called Speak Out, and we're hoping that just to have people line the driveway of LBC and come with posters, come with testimonies, and we'll have some prayer as well. We're hoping that it's a healing event as well for a lot of the Black and brown students who still feel unheard.
Awesome. Wow. So guys, if you are an alumni of LBC, or if you are someone who is in the community who shares in this idea of helping to make a statement and speaking out about racism on college campuses, especially a Christian university, please join them at the front gates of LBC tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Any final words?
Wear a mask.
Wear masks,
We will be bringing hand sanitizer,
Yes.
social distancing. Final thoughts?
Be there.
Yes. Be there, guys. All right. This is Lady L. Stay tuned for more TCP in the morning.